Zolaman and Zul'Gurub. Not the most exciting things to talk about, but on the basis that Friday just gone, they dropped on the PTR where they're still there now. If you go on the Cataclysm PTR, you'll be able to test Zul'Gurub and Zolaman. On Friday, you could actually do it with the blues. When I say the blues, of course, I mean the devs. We didn't actually do that because I didn't really fancy carrying Agron through any content. Instead, we just took a pre-made 5-man. Now, we only done one quick run of each, and you got to remember, the video that you're actually watching at the moment is half of our 10-man heroic group, so we'd literally just finished a full 13 of 13 heroic clear, and then 5 of us went onto the PTR, so we're all heavily overgeared for what the content actually is, meaning many mechanics were being skipped entirely and there was just literally zero threat at all. For example, in Zolaman, where you're battling against a timer to do a timed run to be able to get a bear mount, we done no fancy skips, so there's several skips which I'm going to show you in a Zolaman actual guide on the best way to do the bear run, but we done no skips. We just killed absolutely everything and still had like 10 minutes or so left on the timer, so it's not tight at all if you're going in with some DPS that can pump. So I want to give you an overview of both dungeons, but just not in as much depth as I'll do in the actual guide videos themselves, and what is actually good about Zolaman and Zul'Gurub. And you might be sat there at the moment thinking, well, gear. But I spoke about this in a recent video where the gear is actually only 353 eye level, so while it's okay for ults and certain slots that are quite difficult to come by, you'll be able to fill out very easily. There's one really big pro to running Zul'Gurub and Zolaman, especially if you're an enchanter, and I'm pretty sure I don't even need to tell you what that is now. I suppose I probably should, and that's being able to get crystals. Every boss drops epic gear, and at the moment, all of these big boy enchants like Power Torrent or Landslide, for example, have been really expensive. Well, these are going to drop drastically in price, and to be fair, for the first few days of Zul'Gurub and Zolaman being out, if you can get a group together and smash out several runs to be able to actually get as many crystals as physically possible, you're probably going to be able to make a decent amount of gold early on. But obviously, the more days that go by, the more that these crystals are going to drop to the point where actually there's not much value in doing it at all. But aside from the crystals and those 353 item upgrades if you need them, there's a few quests in Zolaman that we'll look at. There's some optional bosses in Zul'Gurub for cooking materials, which is kind of neither here nor there. Broodlord Mandakir, of course, still drops a raptor, but now it's the armoured Razashi raptor. You can get the Swift Zullian panther. There is no tiger. The tiger no longer exists. It's just the panther. Obviously, the 2 bosses that drop them have got a very low drop chance, but you never know, you might get lucky. So first of all, how difficult really are they? Well, as I say, you need to take what you're seeing on screen with a pinch of salt because we're all extremely well geared. For people that are actually running this because they need the item upgrades from here, this is not going to be easy. The bosses do have quite challenging mechanics compared to other heroic dungeons that you've seen so far, and the actual Zolaman timer to get the bear is extremely tight if you're not doing any skips. You've got significantly lower DPS, and if you wipe once, it's potentially over. So for a quick overview, when you get into Zolaman, there's going to be a few quests that you can get. A couple of them give some 353 epics, like a throwing weapon, which could be particularly nice, and you can get a 24 slot bag from the other, along with a 353 piece of gear as well. You'll pretty much get all of these quests done just as you go along because they're to rescue the scouts, to kill the final boss, and to loot an item. Much like all the other heroics, there is also an archaeology hand in, so this is a voodoo pile. If you're interested, when you hand in 1 troll tablet, you're going to get Armani Power, where everyone just gets a chance to summon a little bear cub that's going to assist you in combat. Exactly the same happens in Zul'Gurub as well. It's 1 single troll tablet, but in Zul'Gurub it's got a chance of summoning a little raptor. Now these are fairly insignificant, but when you're doing something like a ZA timed run, any little bit of help you can get is absolutely worth it, especially when troll tablets are probably dirt cheap on the auction house now. When you're ready to go, you're going to talk to Vol'jin and then go and bang the gong. You're going to head down and you're going to turn left, and then you're going to have a gauntlet where you're going to have to make your way to the top of the stairs, and then this will start the actual encounter. Just be sure to interrupt the chain hills from the Windwalkers, and this is fairly face roll. The first boss being Akelzon. Again, not really many mechanics going on here at all. He does something called static disruption, where you just want to stay spread 5 yards. Calls in an eagle that picks people up that you just need to nuke down, and something that you wouldn't have seen was Electrical Storm. With Electrical Storm, he basically just picks someone up, puts them in the air, and everybody needs to stand underneath them to avoid the storm that's going on outside. Because we had so much damage, we didn't even see the Electrical Storm, but like I say, it's very easy. It goes on 1 person, everyone stacks on that 1 person. At the end, you can run around and release all the prisoners, or you can just have 1 person do it as you go. I just did it as we went along. For each prisoner you save in time, there will be a bonus bit of loot that drops, which is another shard, which is always nice. Next, you're going to be making your way to Nalarak, and the trash is an absolute pain here. No matter how geared you are, because you have totems drop down that protect the mobs, which you need to kill super fast, and you've got medicine men that are using chain heal, which obviously needs interrupting, and they need to be focused down. And the most important thing is the protective wards. When you see the protective ward totem go down, just make sure you nuke it super quick. The boss himself is quite simple. He has a bear form and he has a human form. When he's in his human form, he'll charge the person that's furthest away from the boss, and you'll get a stack of the surge debuff that increases the amount of physical damage you take by 500%. So you just need 3 people to rotate, being the furthest person out, to take 1 charge each. When he goes in bear form, it's just big heals on the tank and nuke him super fast. If he goes back into human form because your DPS is a little bit low, it's not an issue. Just deal with the charges again. But honestly, outside of an AoE silence going on when he's in bear form, that's literally it. You're now going to be making your way to Cataclysm. Make sure you kill any scouts along the way. Again, just focus on casters, keep them interrupted, and none of this trash will cause you too many issues at all. This boss sometimes can be a little bit tricky. The basic thing with the boss is don't stand in front when he's doing a breath. There's going to be 2 hatches that periodically spawn at the entrance. One will go right and one will go left, and there's 36 eggs in total, which spawn the hatchlings that are just going to be AoE down. Now, there's 2 ways to approach it, depending on how well geared you are. If you can handle them all at once, just let the hatchers come in and literally leave them just to hatch everything and then AoE everything down as it comes in. Or another option is to kill one side. So you would kill one hatcher as they're running in and let the other one go and hatch one side, leave him alive, and then he'll run over and hatch the other side once he's run out of eggs on the side he's on. So you're just going to kill the same amount of ads, but just over a longer space of time. It's entirely up to you what you do. I'd just let them all release and just AoE them down. There's also fire bombs that go down. It's fairly obvious what's going on. You'll see red dots on the floor. Don't stand in them because they'll grow and explode. The good news is, if you've got this far and you've still got time on the clock, you've only got 1 more boss to kill, and this boss is actually very easy. This boss is Scottejaye. He puts a refreshing water totem down, which you don't need to kill. You just stand in it, because when he spawns a lynx, it can focus on anybody. This could be a cloth wearer, it could be your healer, it could be literally anybody. So as long as the person being focused on by the spirit lynx is stood in the water totem, they'll need barely any healing at all. The rest of the damage is just going on Scottejaye. He puts corrupted lightning totems down that need to be switched to and killed super fast, but honestly, outside of that, you're basically just nuking the boss. There's not that much going on, other than the annoying fact that you feel like you kill him about 6 times. Because at 60% and 30%, he splits into 2 beings. So Scottejaye the Worshipper and the Spirit of the Lynx. Both begin the stage again with full health, and recombine to form the Lynx avatar when one of the others reaches 20% health. So basically, you want to full focus the boss and ignore the Lynx, but quite honestly, there's not really much to worry about. If you're killing the lightning totems and potentially even dispelling the flame shocks, it's pretty face roll. If you complete the time run, then you'll release the last prisoner, and they'll run around all over the place, smashing big pots that contain some gold on the floor. But if all you're wanting is the bear, as soon as you walk in the room and you look at the top right of the room, that's exactly where the bear always spawns. Hexlord Malakras really hasn't changed that much from the original version in TBC, where he does Siphon Soul. Depending on which class he siphons, depend on what abilities he's going to get, and you're just going to have to manage that. I'm not going to sit and go through all 10 classes and exactly what 3 abilities he can get from each class, because honestly, it just doesn't matter that much. But just nuke each ad down one at a time. If he manages to steal any heals from any of your classes, then obviously dispel or interrupt, depending on whether they're hots or direct heals. And because he'll only ever have 2 of a possible 4, the only one you really need to worry about is if he's got Allison with him, which is a Blood Elf Holy Priest. If it's the Holy Priest, then you need to interrupt the flash heals and just watch out for Arcane Torrents. But other than that, honestly, just nuke one at a time. Stick a skull on one of his ads, an X on the other. Focus him down, focus the boss. It's a very easy fight. And then you finally get to the last boss, which is Dakara, and he's going to start in troll form, doing a whirlwind and a grievous throw, where he just basically throws his weapon at a random player. They'll continue to bleed until fully healed, so fairly standard mechanics. And then when he goes into the second phase, he's either going to pick Essence of the Bear or Essence of the Lynx. If it's Essence of the Bear, you need to dispel the creeping paralysis, because if it reaches full duration, you end up getting stunned. So being stacked for when that comes in to then mass dispel if you've got a priest is obviously huge, but the same applies in this phase as it does when you're doing the bear boss at the start. You always want to rotate one person out at a time to soak the surge, which is the charge that he does. If it's the Lynx, the only thing really to worry about is if he jumps on someone and he starts clawing at their face. Just if you've got Paladin, bop them when that happens, or ice block it or disperse, or just a big cooldown while you've got that on, because it does actually hurt. And then the final phase is either the Dragon Hawk or the Eagle, and quite honestly, it doesn't really matter because both of them are pretty easy. In our one and only clear on the PTR, it was actually the Eagle, so you're just avoiding whirlwinds and nuking the boss. But if it was the Dragon Hawk, you're just moving from fire, and that's about it. He does a 60-degree cone breath, which you just obviously move out of. He does a whirling breath, which you're just going to have to heal through, and a pillar of fire that you just move from as well, so fairly basic. Zul'Gurub's got a lot of optional bosses, which I'm not going to talk about at all, and actually I'd say mechanically the bosses in here are a bit more interesting than Zolaman's, so probably need a bit too much explanation for what's meant to be an overview video, so I'm just going to fly through the bosses, and then we can all move on with our day. But as I say, before we actually have these instances go live, I will have sort of a 10-15 minute guide video for both of them separately, so be sure to subscribe, like the video and all that jazz, and then you won't miss them. Now, quite honestly, High Priest for Noxus is the first boss you're going to come against, and it will likely make or break your group. For some reason, the first boss in here, in my opinion at least, is the most difficult. It's got toxic links that go on that two people get it, and they just have to move away from each other to break the link. It puts a small maze down, and like where you can see where I'm stood at the moment, I'm actually waiting for the beam to chase people through the maze, but because of how high our DPS was, we never even got this mechanic. And then it's got a Whispers of Healthist that can be interrupted, and just some random damage going round. It does do a conal breath, so you always want to face it away from the group, but quite honestly, the most difficult part is the maze. If you actually run to where I am now, before it starts, then the beam will start moving through. You might need to move a little bit further than where I am, or a little bit further around to basically avoid the beam if it's coming quickly, but then it finishes and no one even takes any damage. If you actually try and do the maze properly, you're probably going to get hit and die. Bloodlord Mandakir, of course, drops the Raptor mount. Now, this boss has changed completely, but the basics of the fight is you're going to get one shot at some point and then res by one of the ghosts on the outside of the room. Every time someone dies, he's going to do more damage, and when he spawns a raptor, the raptor needs nuking down because the raptor actually goes and takes the ghosts out. So every time you let the raptor get to a ghost, that's one less death that you can have in the group. But quite honestly, it's just nuke the boss, get up quickly when you die, and make sure that you kill the raptor before it can get to the outside of the room. Bloodletting is for the healers, and it does 50% of the player's current health as shadow damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds, so the lower health the person's got, the less damage they're going to take. So don't actually try and spam heal the person because it's a waste of mana. When you get to High Priestess Kilnara, you'll notice that there's loads of panthers asleep in cages around the outside of the room, but they're not actually cages because they're open, so just pens, I would say. You want to kill all of these before you push the boss to 50%, because if you push the boss to 50%, any ones that are remaining asleep on the outside of the room will join the fight anyway. So just pull one pack at a time, AoE them down until they're all dead, and then fully focus the boss. The boss does an ability called Tears of Blood that needs interrupting, and Lash of Anguish that needs dispelling, and then at 50% the boss is going to transform into a big humanoid panther type thing called Bethek, and it just starts absolutely slapping the tank. So big heals and nuke it down. We killed it too fast for her to actually cast Camouflage, which is like a Vanish. If you see one of those, don't panic, the boss hasn't reset, she'll be back, but when she does come back, she's going to do an absolute crap ton of damage on a random person with an ambush type ability. It also causes them to bleed, so just give them some heals. Zanzil is quite an interesting boss where you'll see 3 big beacons, which actually is different. This is not how I remember it or how I've seen it on those dodgy servers where you've got the 3 cauldrons, you've got red, green and blue. They're really like illuminated, they're lit up with a big beacon from the sky in Classic, which wasn't the case before, so that's quite cool. But there's going to be 3 phases. There's either going to be a red phase where the zombies come in and you're going to want to take red so you AoE them down. There's going to be a green phase where the room fills with toxins, which you're going to need green to be immune to it. And then there's a blue phase, which you're going to get a big ad that walks around and focuses on someone. As long as you take the blue and then hit it, it will freeze it. And then you just carry on nuking the boss. That's literally it. If you want to kill the boss quicker, you can get everyone to take red on the pool, as long as your healer is confident that he's going to keep everyone alive, because while you've got red, you're doing damage to everything around you, but also yourself. But it does make it quicker. So everyone get red, nuke the boss, make your healer do some work. GG. And then the final boss, which is an absolute joke. It's always felt to me like Jindo is missing an entire phase. It's a 2-phase fight, but in my opinion, it should have always been a 3-phase fight. That's because the first phase is just nuke the boss. When the boss does Shadows of Hakkar, make sure you stand in the dead zone. And then phase 2 is get a Gurubashi spirit up, which is the big berserker type things. There'll be 3 chains, and you want to stand near a chain when one of the ads does a body slam on you, so they body slam the chain. Then it becomes vulnerable so you can kill it. Rinse and repeat this on 3 chains and the fight's over. Yeah, that's literally it. I mean, I was expecting to break the chains and then have a big boss to fight at the end where it's a race against the clock, or No, just the free chains. And that's pretty much an overview that I can give you to ZA and ZG. Like I say, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on the bosses and maybe even show you some footage of us a bit under-geared and doing it, but that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're looking for an extra way to support the channel, consider joining all of these guys scrolling down here now who have joined the channel as a member. There are some members-only videos and stuff like that, and you get a badge that everyone can see when you do a comment below the video that you're an actual member, or even on the live streams when we're doing the podcasts. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one.